And then the rest of communication. So, students, you must be the lesson of Manasseh, and so we thank you very much for this opportunity and for the kind introduction. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, colleagues. How are you? I'm also fine. I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to share with you and also to learn. Knowledge is about no single person embrace it. And there are certain things which I know, and there's something I know which you may not also know. So I want to make it as interactive as possible so that we can all learn something from it. My name is Manasseh, as already known. And I am 37 years old. I was born in Awuni. Those of you from Ghana, and I think Manasseh is South Africa. The higher the father you are in the capital, the poorer the landscape or the development or whatever you see. But up to the conditions are very much. So the poverty is endemic, and during the colonial era, there was a deliberate policy denying the northern part of education. So I think when we had a first secondary school down south, it took about 70 years to get the first secondary school up, because the British said that when they gave education in the south, it's very difficult to do. So if they didn't give education to those people, finally easy to do them and also get them as cheap labor for some of the things they were doing. And so not Ghana and those of you from this country know that. And so I was born into a very poor family. My father was working in the meat factory, which collapsed, and so he became a peasant farmer. And the land is not fertile, the land is so small, and so at the time you had very little to feed your family, and so things became very hard. So he came to a town called in the city to work as a farm labor. Then when he saved some money, he would come to my life for us and come. So it was in the process of working as a farm labor that he got a job as an agricultural hospital, which he did from 1990 to 2018 when he went on retirement. And so with time, myself and my siblings joined the Kratchi. And the salary for the Nigerian was virtually nothing. Today I was credited as my DST subscription, but that was the salary he was getting. Unfortunately for us, he didn't need to come and us. So, a night of is practically nothing. Had 11 children. Yes, and I'm number 2. So that tells the journey started. You see, in this world, there are two types of people who come into this world. There are some who are on top of the mountains. So the first, they will be descending. And there are some that are also born at the very foot of the mountain. So your first step is what? To climb. So some of us had to farm and did a whole lot of menial jobs and others to support ourselves. So those of you know my story. I was born Azure Awuni. So in primary 6, I said I needed a Christian name because I didn't have one. And so there was a book titled Christian Names and Their Meanings. And I was so determined to get one that I was going through the names to look at one that or whose meaning I liked. Obviously, I was going to go for the Daniel, the Emmanuel, the popular ones. I hadn't heard about the name Manasseh before. But when I saw the meaning, it was something like, God has made me forget the suffering in my father's house. I didn't know the story behind it, but I felt that this name captures my reality. Because in Bongo, we would wake up without knowing where our next meal would come from. And so if in Kratchi things were not even good, at least we could have something to eat, despite the fact that the meal was nowhere near what we call balanced meal. But that's how I chose my own name to reflect the reality. Growing up, I wanted to be a bank manager. And the reason I wanted to be a bank manager was Kratchi is a very deprived community. You hardly get people to inspire you or motivate you. So we had a Ghana Commercial Bank branch manager who had a very small Opel car. He was in tie and suit. And having this mentality that the bank is where they count money, and the head of where they count money is a bank manager, I very much wanted to be a bank manager. So when BEC, I actually wanted to go to Tamale Secondary because my elder brother had gone there, and I didn't want to go to school in Kratchi. Apart from the fact that the schools in Kratchi, to be sincere, are not very good, deprived schools. So I wanted to go out. The other reason was, at least on Saturdays, I wouldn't go to farm because every weekend, we had to go to farm. So going to school outside would at least consign that assignment to only vacations. But my father said there was no money, so I had to choose a school in Kratchi. Kratchi Senior High School in 2001, and the course was business, accounting. I like writing. I like reading. I've written 3 books. The 4th one is almost ready. But just because of that bank manager mentality, I went to do business. And whilst there, I joined the drama club because back in Sunday school, I was acting. So the first year we went for a competition, Student Drama Festival. It used to be an annual competition. So we acted and got 2nd in the district. But the following year, the man who wrote the play for us had been transferred out of the district. So I told the drama tutor that I was going to try my hands on the theme for that year's competition. I wrote a dance drama, invited my teacher in the junior high school who came and then directed. When we went, we had a 1st position. Then the following year, I wrote again, we had a first position. Then I was debating and doing all manner of writings. When I completed SHS, I had to work to get money to come to school. So I was a caretaker of the GES guest house in Kitekrachi. And as a caretaker, you're doing everything, including washing of bedsheets and everything. There's no laundry, so everything was bare hands. But in my spare moments, I would write articles and short stories and put them on the notice board. Some of the visitors would read and say, wow, who wrote this? And I remember one of them saying, if you could write such a thing, you wouldn't be here. But in that process, the Ghana Education Service District Public Relations Officer, one Mr. Fridolin Empe, saw the writings and said, well, you write well. Why don't you go and do journalism instead of the business course? And actually, I had applied to UCC. I completed 2004. So the 2005, I applied to UCC to do BCom. In those days, apart from business administration at Legon, that was the next most competitive business program in the university. I didn't get admission. That's not to say I failed. Okay, I don't like mathematics. I really don't like business that much. But in my electives, I managed to get 2 A's and then a B. So I didn't fail. But I didn't get admission to UCC. So the following year, when I was waiting to reapply, that was when this man said I could do journalism. I found the idea interesting and applied to the Ghana Institute of Journalism. They had just started a degree program. So in 2006, we were 24 that were admitted to do the degree program. So that's how I got into journalism. And to take your mind back, I think last year, the University of Cape Coast, their final year students, communications, their end of semester examination was to assess my investigative works. So that's what they did. So the school that didn't give me admission is now studying my work, thanks to journalism. And thanks to the fact that I didn't get admission. I'm just saying this to let you know that there are times that when you don't get what you want, it turns out to be the biggest or greatest blessing for your life. If I had gone to a bigger senior high school, I would not have had the opportunity to write plays. And if I had got admission to UCC, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be here today. I may have been an accounts clerk somewhere in a state institution, so much frustrated. And if I wasn't careful, they may be using my hands to add zeros and other things to embezzle money. So that's how my career began. GIJ was so difficult, but I managed to go through. I completed 2010, June. And then, because I was writing, the chiropractic and wellness centers, the human resource manager was one of my readers. I was writing on Ghana Web, My Joy Online, and others. But if you go to GIJ today, and you ask of a student who used to write on the trees, they will mention my name. Social media wasn't this popular. So if I had something to write, I would write and then print, put them on a notice board and the trees around. So if you got students reading, then, oh, Manasseh has released another piece. So that's how I started the writing. But this man was following my writings and so sent me an email that I know you are completing. We need a public relations manager. So if you can come and do your service and then we'll retain you afterwards. I remember at the time they were paying service persons around 200 Ghana cedis, but they were paying me 560 cedis a month. And when I completed the service, they wanted to retain me, but I resigned and went to do my master's in journalism in addition. thankfully, my journalism career started on a very good note. On a good note because it didn't take long for me to get known. I completed 2010, and then the 2010 Journalism Awards that were held. Normally, they are held the following year for stories of the previous year. So 2010, the year I completed, I was judged the best human rights reporter, the best television news reporter, and then the most promising journalist of the year. That was the year of completion. Then the following year, I was the best TV news reporter, the best features writer, the best sanitation reporter, and also the overall journalist of the year. So just a year after leaving school, thankfully, I got these recognitions and opportunities started coming. So all the jobs I've done since leaving school, I never applied for any job. If there's anything at all, I have rejected a lot of job offers. And the secret is not that I have two hairs or anything. In one of my books, Voice of Conscience, there's an article titled, Graduating with Second Class Upper. And GIJ, they were so disappointed I graduated with second class upper. My mates, my family, everybody thought I deserved a first class. But I spent more time reading things outside the classroom than just the coursework. And I know those of us still in school, or those of you still in school, there's a difference between a very good student and a very good professional. There are some who are able to combine two, but if you restrict yourself to only getting an A, you will get first class upper if you had any, but you'd go to the work environment and you'd find yourself wanting. So just decide what you want to do, spend so much time specializing in it, and you will surely find your space when you go out there. So that is me. Today we are asked to discuss something on ethical leadership. And by the way, I played leadership role in school. In a primary school, I was the assistant senior school prefect. And I believe I was given assistant because I was too tiny. In the junior high school, I was a senior school prefect. In the senior high school, I was a senior school prefect. Then at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, I was the SRC president. So I've played leadership role at the student level. But after leaving, that is when I felt the call to leadership began. And so it all depends on how you see leadership. I have not occupied any political office, but there are certain things that you may do that amounts to leadership, which does not necessarily mean your position. So let me throw this back to you. Who do you think is a leader? If you hear the word a leader or leadership, what comes to mind? Anybody at all? Yes, boss. Someone who is able to motivate, inspire, or influence some other people to take an action. Yes. Who else? When you hear leader or leadership, what comes to mind? Or let me put it this way. In what capacity can one lead? In what capacity can someone lead? Hello? In what capacity can someone lead? There are lots of people who know the right answers, but they are afraid of making mistakes. And leaders shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes because it's part of the journey of life. Yes. Okay, the third and final question. Before we proceed, we'll come back to questions. Do you see yourselves as leaders? If you see yourself as leaders, or if you see yourself as a leader, say yeah. If you don't see yourself as a leader, say no. Okay. If you don't see yourself as a leader, nobody can force you to lead. But I agree with those who said yeah. Everybody has the capacity to what? To lead. He mentioned certain keywords. There's motivation, there's inspiration, there's what? Influence. So, every human being at all, at every stage in life, at least if you, even children, are able to do this. There's a very small girl, I think at the time she wasn't even qualified to vote in Ghana, per our laws and per the laws of many countries. But she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Who knows the name of this girl? Hello? Okay. Let's mention the country she's from first before we speak about her name. Which country? Who knows? You know, right? Oh, there's a young woman, a girl, let me call, yes. Yes, Malala Yousafzai. You can Google it and then they pronounce it well. It's not a Ghanaian name. Okay, from which country? Pakistan. At age 17, she won a Nobel Peace Prize. Let me see by hands those who are more than 17 years. If you are more than 17, including the ladies. We know ladies don't want to show you your age, but today, just pardon us. We don't take it anywhere. We won't use it for any ritual. So, if you are more than 17 years, let me see your hand up. Yes, a majority of you are what? More than 17 years. So you can also lead. Hello? There is a very good author on leadership. The name is Kevin Kruse. His Kruse is spelled Kruse. Kevin Kruse. You can look him up afterwards. And he said a number of things that leadership is not about. One, he says leadership has nothing to do with seniority or one's position in the hierarchy of a company. That it has nothing to do with seniority or your position in the hierarchy of a company. So it is possible that in this university, there are some people who are down there providing greater leadership than some of the board or council members. Do you agree? Do you agree? So leadership is not really about how high you go or your position in the hierarchy of an organization. It is also possible that in Ghana, we have a certain man who drives the only vehicle with a coat of arms as the number plate, the highest official, being called His Excellency, who is also not providing any leadership. True or false? Yes. I know the MPP people are not happy. Okay, but I do not, I don't know what to say. I don't have a political party. I don't say I'm neutral. Those who say they are neutral are mainly hypocrites, okay? If India and Pakistan are playing cricket, I can be neutral because I don't like cricket. And I don't have a strong affiliation between India and Pakistan. Okay, so I don't like cricket. But when we are talking about the issues of Ghana, I have voted in every election apart from the very last one. Okay, and I voted NDC MPP. You know, some people, when they want to hide, they say, I vote for CPP or PPP. Okay, so I voted for NDC, I voted for MPP. But they have both not really provided the leadership we really need. So leadership is not even about the presidency. There are certain deputy ministers I respect more than the President of the Republic of Ghana. Okay? And that is because of who they are, what they do. And there are people, sometimes you go to a certain organization, and the security man commands more respect than the head of the organization when you come to know them. So leadership is not about one's position or how high you go in an organization. Leadership has nothing to do with titles. This is a continent that people love titles. Sometimes you see somebody, doctor, professor, okay? The assemblyman. When you ask an assemblyman, what is your name? Oh, I'm honorable, so and so. The President of the United States is called what? The title is honorable, but you hardly see them use it. And our traditional rulers, bobo. Now, every traditional authority has its own title. Okay? Asantehene's title is what? Otumfo. Ochehene's title is? Who knows the title of Ochehene? Where are the Ghanaians here? Hello? The Ghanaians here? Hey. Because of this small question, everybody is, you've renounced your citizenship. Osajifo. Okay. So every traditional authority has its own title. But these days, you realize that all of them are adding the title of the British monarchy to DS. So when you hear His Royal Majesty, His Royal Highness, these are not our titles. But leadership, for your information, is not about what? Titles. And I hope you agree. Those who agree, let me hear yeah. And those who disagree, let me hear no. If it were parliament, the no's will have it, depending on which one the speaker wants to say. Leadership has nothing to do with personal attributes. Okay? You may be handsome, you may be beautiful, you may be not so handsome, you may be very tall, or you may also have a presidential height, or whatever you are. That is not about leadership. Hello. Why? Did I say Muhammad was a Christian? Okay. Let's go. So it's not about what? Personal attributes. It's not about personal attributes. Okay. And it's even not about statuses. Look, when the Queen of England died, we're told that she was also the head of state of how many countries? Apart from Great Britain or England, how many other countries? How many other countries? If I don't get this answer, I'll lobby that 5 marks should be deducted from your... Oh, yes. Okay, you go on Google. Yes. 14. Clap for him. Yes. She was also the head of state of what? 14 countries. Almost the whole world had to pause because her death was the breaking news everywhere. A very powerful woman. But I was just thinking about this woman, and a thought came to mind, okay, that in the next 50 years, Martin Luther King will still be quoted. Martin Luther King will be cited. He will be respected more than the Queen of England. When people are to cite leadership and they're supposed to quote what they have said, cite examples of the life they have lived and all of that, I sincerely believe, you mark it somewhere, if we are all alive, that Martin Luther King would be more prominent than the Queen of England. True or false? I was in the US in 2014 for the International Visitor Leadership Program on Investigative Journalism. And we went to 5 different states of the United States, including their Congress or Parliament. And I can tell you, just walking and seeing monuments and others, Martin Luther King Avenue and others, this man appeared to be more popular than a lot of the presidents of the United States. How many of us have heard about Martin Luther King before? If you heard about the name before today, let me see by hand. And almost all of us have. But the American presidents, if I should ask you to name them, there's only a few that we can remember or we may have heard about. So leadership is not so much about what? The position you hold. It is not so much about your title. It's not so much about your attributes or what you inherited. So that if you are born into a certain family, you are called a royal and you are accorded all the niceties of life and everything. But the reality is that you may not be a leader. I'm not saying the Queen is not a leader or she wasn't a leader. All that I'm trying to say is that there was a man who was never a president. Martin Luther King died in his 30s. But the influence he wields till date is greater than people who became president and died at the age of 90. Okay? So, those are the realities about leadership. We are still on Kevin Cruse's leadership attributes. And he says, leadership is not about occupying a great office. Which is the most powerful political office in the world? Can someone tell me the most powerful political office in this world? This one, I'll go around. Okay. There are people who know the answer, but they'll never say, so I'll go around. Where should I start from? This way or that way? Okay, so let me start from here. People are doing consultation. Senior, will you help us?
I'll probably say the White House. I don't know. Political office. I don't know. I don't know.
Presidency at the White House.
Presidency at the White House.
Maybe USA. North Korea.
I think it's presidency.
Of Ghana?
No, of like any country.
Being a Chief Justice. Being a Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. Okay. I think the first group got it right. The presidency of the United States, I think, is the most powerful political office. My friend, your hairstyle looks like the North Korean leader. So, oh yeah, but that's a statement of fact. Just Google Kim Jong-un. That's his haircut. Okay. Oh no, it's just that's how his haircut is. So maybe if you are also saying he's the most powerful person, then we have to fear you because you may have a relationship with this man. You have no relationship. You are very weak. Wicked. You are very wicked. Okay. Okay. That's just by the way. The North Korean leader is developing a lot of nuclear weapons and I think he's itching for a fight. Okay. Ukraine and Russia are fighting and he'll just get up and then also be throwing missiles around. And that's what makes him happy. Donald Trump calls him the rocket man. But it is not about, leadership is not just about a position you hold or about occupying a great office. What then is leadership? And according to Kevin Cruz, leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. He says it is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards achievement of a goal. So it may not necessarily be what you yourself can do or what you know. It's about how you are able to influence others and use their expertise, their talents, their strengths, their weaknesses, everything towards the achievement of what? A particular goal. So even amongst your friends, if you are the center of influence, then you're providing leadership. Of course, there is negative and there is what? Positive influence. If amongst your friends somebody is going through difficulty and they say, well, let's get Asumasi to come. Whatever he says, I think he or she can find a solution. Then you are leading. Some lead in a level of their families. So there's leadership everywhere. And the world is structured such that not all of us are born to be famous in our village. Okay? In the village, there are those who are famous, there are people who are ordinary. Then in the town, in the city, the entire country, and there are certain people who are on the global stage. I don't know where you grew up, but before I started hearing about Messi or Ronaldo, there were certain footballers in Ketekrashi that when they were playing football, everybody loved to see them. So we all have what? Different stages of influence in life. And when we talk about leadership, and you want to even talk about greatness, Martin Luther King says something about greatness, and I think it is very related to leadership. To be able to lead, you should have this. He says everyone can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to get a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. So at the end of the day, it is not about your degrees or whatever. There are certain people who lead who may not even be able to speak good English, good French, or whatever language that is being studied at school. So when we talk about leadership, we know what it is, right? Hello? Who amongst us up to this point doesn't have an idea of what leadership is about? We all do. Thank you. Now let's move to the issue of what? Ethics or ethical leadership. When we say ethical leadership, what comes to mind? I told you I wanted this to be interactive. Another hand is up, but I want someone else to speak. We'll come to you, but I want someone else to speak. Okay, thank you.
So ethical leadership is being able to, without any form of fear, do what is right when the time is needed, and without any form of supervision. Basically. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, who else? Ethical leadership. Or if you hear something ethical, what comes to mind? A set of moral principles that determine your decision making. I think she deserves a hand. So there is always a conflict between some people think that once it is legal or it is backed by law, it is what should happen. And there are people who also believe that once it is morally wrong, I don't have to do it. In leadership, those dilemmas happen. There are people who think that whatever is legal, or if the law doesn't prohibit it, I have no inhibition. But how many of us woke up today, or even this month, began the month by going through the criminal code and the constitution of Ghana to be able to determine how we act or behave in society or amongst our peers, or the constitution of your country? Is there anyone here who does that? There's no one. Do you know that if we all decide to disobey traffic regulations, the police cannot arrest us all? True or false? Okay? The police in this country are very few. So if we all get up today, we say we are going to break all the traffic regulations, can the police arrest all of us? They can't. But what will happen? What will happen? The one who has a mic should tell me what can happen. Okay. You were busy taking the mic, so I understand you. I'm saying that if you all decide to break traffic regulations, it is impossible for the police to arrest all of us who drive, and even pedestrians, motor riders, and all of that. And we agree that they can't arrest all of us. But I'm asking, if we did that, what would happen?
The country would be
chaos. That's the exact word I need. So, ethical leadership is needed to what? Prevent chaos. That is all that we have to remember. Ethical leadership. Because there are a lot of things that we can do. There are a lot of things we can do. And when it comes to ethics, there's a quotation in the Bible that says that all things are permissible, but not everything is what? Expedient. The reason ethical leadership is important in this continent, or on this continent, the number one reason is that we have weak institutions. We have weak institutions. And we have very powerful presidents. Okay? The most powerful president in the world, as we know, there are no two ways about that. We only have somebody say North Korea, which is debatable. But the most powerful president in the world is the President of the United States. Okay? But the weakest president in his own country is the President of the United States. Do you understand this? When it comes to the world, the president of the United States, in my view, is the most powerful president globally. But in terms of the presidents in their own countries, the president of America is the weakest in his or her own country. The reason is that the institutions of state are so strong. So the president cannot do anything and get away with it. After the election, there was this, one of the worst people ever to be president in my lifetime, Donald Trump, who lost the election and was claiming that he won and he wouldn't leave. Did anybody do anything? If it were in this country or in any part of Africa, you see the ECOWAS will come in to beg him, AU will come in to beg, UN and other people, then the embassies, the other countries will be begging him. Then the opposition leader will be so frightened that they have to get protection somewhere. And if they want to do anything, he will deploy the soldiers. But the United States, when Trump said he wasn't going to leave, nobody said anything. They knew that he will leave. As soon as the results were mentioned, Secret Service didn't need his permission to go and protect Joe Biden, the president-elect. Okay, so the institutions of state work. But in our context, the president is so powerful. Very, very powerful. So, if there are no ethics, and we are going to just depend on the laws we have in Africa and in our democracies, there will be serious chaos. And that is the chaos we are facing. And who doesn't think we are facing chaos in this continent? All of us. Those of us who believe we are facing chaos, let me hear yeah. And those of us who think Africa is like Chinny Jonas's heaven, let me hear no. Not even a single no. So that's the reality. So I want us to go through a few reasons we need ethical leadership on the African continent. The first is that is what will provide stability in governance. Stability in governance. It is just about doing what is right. Doing what is right. When you don't have to be compelled. Sometimes the laws are even not against it. But you know that, no, this is not right. You see, when we talk of economics, the little I know is that our demands are so much, but the resources to meet those demands are not as much as our needs. So when you are given something small, okay, and then you have to buy books, you have to buy food, you have to pay hostel fees and whatever, managing that money to meet your needs is basically what economics is about. So if we all agree that let's elect one person, give them the power to do this, and then that person appoints a finance minister, and that finance minister is supposed to take the loans on our behalf and manage those loans prudently so that we don't go and borrow much. But we have a finance minister whose company makes money anytime we go to what? Borrow. And that finance minister is the one we are charging to manage those monies so that we don't go and borrow. But this person gets money, or his company gets money anytime we go to borrow. Does it make sense? Okay? So they will argue that, well, it doesn't break the law, but ethically it is what? Wrong. That I'm the finance minister of Ghana. Anytime we go to borrow money, a company I formed and founded, that company what? Benefits. So logically, such a person should have the motivation to go and what? Borrow more. And that person will have the motivation to misuse the money so that we can go and what? Borrow more. Even if that person is not doing that, somebody somewhere watching wouldn't think that, well, this is right. No. And even getting that company to be part of it, everything is wrong. During COVID, the United States made a law that if you have a relative in government, they were giving support to businesses. Even spouses of government officials and others who owned businesses, they were excluded from taking that support. That is what we call ethical leadership. Today, go to the districts, school feeding program, or the DC's wife, so and so, the DC's cousin, so and so. So it becomes what we term as what? Family and friends affairs. And that is not what? Ethical leadership. Now, if there's someone who feels left out, then they feel that the only way to also get this is to what? Go and take over power. And it is the reason this continent is in a serious turmoil. So without ethical leadership, we can have what? Political stability. We need ethical leadership to what? Stop corruption, which is the biggest problem in this continent. I have done a lot of investigations on corruption. There are people who have gone to jail because of stories I have done. The current head of the Public Procurement Authority is being prosecuted because I did a story titled Contracts for Sale. Okay? And then this man was involved. At the end of the day, the question is, are there laws to stop all these things? Yes, there are laws. We have a procurement law, and we have a public procurement authority that is set up to ensure that this law is enforced. But it was this head of the public procurement authority who also formed companies, and what these companies were doing was that they will win government contracts. They don't have the ability to execute the contracts. So they will win the government contract and sell them. So if you go online and type contracts for sale, you will be able to find them. I don't know whether you can project YouTube. So at the end of the day, we just play a bit of when this man was busted. This is a leader. The entire country, we put the procurement of this country in the hands of somebody to manage it, to stop the abuses. And there's a law. He knows the law more than any other Ghanaian. So why would the right thing not be done? Because we don't have what? Ethical leadership. And in Africa, if you take corruption out, 90% of our problems will be solved. We have a lot of resources, but a few people are stealing those resources. And then sometimes you don't know what they want to do with it. Ethical leadership is needed to promote development. Without ethical leadership, we can't have development. Growing up, we're hearing least developed countries and all of those terms. In our lifetime, we are hearing them. Our grandchildren will also come and hear them. So the question is, when can Africa also rise? We need ethical leadership to be able to provide social services. How many of us have been to 37 or Kolebu? Sometimes when you go there, what you see, and how many of us have been to the new hospital, the University of Ghana Medical Center? You've been there. So you see the difference between UGMC and 37 or Kolebu. When you go to 37 in the morning, there was a time I was going for physio. You go there in the morning and then it's like a market. Okay? And the worst of it all is that they even allow these traditional medicine practitioners. And they will come, when the people are waiting to see the doctor, they will come and start. Then all of you are supposed to what? Sing. Then when they finish, they'll pray and now begin to tell you the 72 different ailments that that single balm in their hand can cure. Okay? Then you have people who are going to queue there. I was in a documentary on a certain boy who lost a limb. A Boy's Wish is on YouTube. And so these people will leave Takrady at midnight, get to the hospital by 4 a.m. Sometimes it took them up to 1 p.m. to see the doctor. That is how difficult things are. I was in Burkina Faso last year for a conference and I fell ill. And I wanted to go to a hospital, so I asked about the best private hospital in Burkina Faso. Ghana, we say we are terrible, but in some places. Oh no, I was thinking of the standard of the Lister Hospital, the Nyaho and others, and the place I got to, and they tell me this is like the best in Ouagadougou. So this is what, and I was speaking to somebody from Sierra Leone who thinks that Sierra Leone see Ghana. Is there anybody from Sierra Leone here? Okay. That some of them see Ghana the same way Ghana sees United States and Great Britain and others, because wars and other things have just destroyed the country, and those that have had the opportunity to lead haven't done well. We need ethical leadership to give hope to the African continent. If you have ever traveled before, and if you haven't even traveled outside Europe, and you are watching international news media, you find children, young people dying in the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, some are dying in the desert, and some are dying just to get away from this continent. Migration is a global thing, but if you look at the desperation here, okay, there was an Afrobarometer or so survey that said that about 70% of Ghanaian youths say if they get the opportunity, they will leave the country. Then somebody's comment said the 30%, they didn't hear the question well. So they should go back and then ask them. If they understood, they would also say yes. But that is a reality. If we have a country, or let me say a continent, generally, that the average person is prepared to run away from that continent, it is all about leadership. Okay, let me just be blunt. And the last point, I'm saying we need ethical leadership to give dignity, respect to Africans, and by extension, the black race. If you have ever traveled as a young black person, the way you are treated at the airport sometimes is very disheartening. And you would take this seriously. I think this talk, this is the most important part I want to emphasize. So that when you leave here and you get into leadership position, you should know that the position you're occupying is not only for you. When I'm traveling and I get to the airport here, the immigration people and those who are checking you in, well, as soon as they take your passport, hey, Manasseh, I'm so privileged to be serving you. Some will even take selfies with you. Then I get to an airport. I've experienced this a number of times. We're traveling from Belgium to Cologne in Germany. When we got to the airport, they said, just show your ID card. So people just took their cars. Some just waved it and they nodded and they passed. When it got to my turn, they pulled me aside and started asking questions. So where are you going? So I'm coming for the Global Media Forum. Who invited you? DW Academy. Where are their letters? And I showed them the letter. Your hotel accommodation, this. By the time they finished with me, almost everybody was gone. Why did they have to treat me that way? A black young person from Africa is likely to be running away from his country. We talk about racism. Okay? If you have ever been subjected to racism, it is very bad. I won't condone or tolerate racism anywhere. But I believe that the way we conduct ourselves also contribute to how others see us. Let me, please, the two of you should come. Okay, no, the two ladies, please come. So that these two, if this young woman owns her own business at East Legon, she's doing so well, okay? And then this young woman is also at the traffic light selling granite and chewing gum loudly. Or let me say, no, that's even a business. Or she's begging. Which of these two would you respect more? This? Yeah. This? Yes. That's not who they are. But I just want to, thank you very much. Sit down. I just want to let you know that the reality is that the beggars we see when we are driving or when in a car, we don't give them that same respect we give to some of the people who are accomplished in their various fields. True or false? So if you are looking at Africa today, are we those who have accomplished in our various fields, or we are beggars? Who are we? When COVID-19 struck, there was one continent that was least affected. What is that continent? Which continent is that? Africa. There was one continent that was begging for PPE. Which continent is that? Yes. When they were developing vaccines for against COVID-19, there was one continent that didn't develop its own vaccine. Which continent is that? And when they developed the vaccines and they were doing testing around the world, certain people said the white man wanted to kill us, so we shouldn't take part. Which continent is that? And when they finished the vaccine and people started buying, there was one continent that said, no, we don't have money, give it to us for free. Which continent is that? Okay? To the extent that in our own republic, the Republic of Ghana, the only time we attempted to buy our own vaccine, all the COVID-19 vaccines we had were free. Okay? We had a president who sat on a luxurious presidential jet and went to Germany to beg for free vaccine. The Akufo-Addo, this is a reality, I'm not joking. And when we complain, they say, oh, the journey was useful. So I'm just trying to let you know that all these things our leaders have done, the impact is that we are not respected on the global stage. There is nothing wrong with the black race. It's just poor leadership, unethical leadership. Those of us who watch athletics, they just ended World Athletics Championship. The men's 4x100 relay, the first three countries, I think Britain, Canada, and the USA. First, second, third, gold, silver, and bronze. The relay, those of us who don't follow sports, okay, is that race that you run and then you give the baton to somebody to also run. I know there are some of us who don't follow sports. And I don't know football that much, but when I'm watching with my wife, I'm like an expert. I remember they were going to play penalties, and when they finished, are they going to play at the same post? I said no. Everybody will play theirs differently. But this is the race I'm talking about. The teams were what? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Britain, Canada, the United States. All of them were what? Blacks. From 1986 till date, all the 100 meters winners, okay, men's 100 meters winners at Olympic Games are all what? Blacks. But none of them is from Africa. Where we have the biggest collection of black people and black talents. So I don't think there's something wrong with you. I don't think there's something wrong with me. But I think there is something wrong with leadership. And what is wrong with that leadership is what? Unethical leadership. There's something that I think is fundamentally wrong, which is what? Greed. It is the reason somebody gets to a leadership position and they think this is the opportunity to immunize myself and my family and all my generations against poverty. For the other people who are not on the throne, you can perish. So if we are able to get to that point that we can talk about ethical leadership, and we have it, we will succeed. Let me conclude by saying, look, when we're talking about leadership, don't wait till you become a politician. Start at your level. When I started journalism, I did stories that led to the cancellation of a lot of companies. Some companies even collapsed because of stories I did. And when I started, if I needed houses in Trasaco or East Legon to drop some of the stories I did, I would have got them. But I told myself that no, there's no way I'm going to do that. And I told you, not because I come from a rich home. When I became the journalist of the year, 2016, when I was doing the President's Ford scandal, one of the biggest and impactful stories politically, the president's friend met me, okay? And he said that, we hear you are bringing this story out. I've actually narrated this in my book, The Fourth John. He says, we hear you are bringing this story out, and if this story should come out at this stage, we are going to lose the election. But if it were any other journalist, we wouldn't be afraid, because how much will he require to drop the story that we cannot pay? Meaning, if I said, give me 10 million to what? Kill the story, they were prepared to pay. But he says, some ask for you, we know that no amount of money will make you what? Stop. So, if you can wait till after the election, then you even do the story. I said no. Or we can give you something on Akufo-Addo so that you put it together. So that when you bring the story out and the NPP are attacking us, we can also attack them. And I said, if you have something about Akufo-Addo which is newsworthy, that should be a separate story. But to put all together to create a false balance, for me, was not professional. Then the next step, oh, well, you see, you are from the north. President Mahama is from the north. And these people don't even think Northerners deserve to be president. If through you, your brother loses the election, I said, so if I stop this because he's from the north and I'm from the north, if Akufo-Addo should become president and he's doing the wrong things, can I report? Oh, not that. So it dragged on. Eventually, we did a story, and they lost the election. And some of them, if you go to my Facebook post today, anytime I make a comment, the party boys will come, shut up. You also complain it's because of you that these people came to power. We did your stories and we lost the election all the time. All that I'm trying to say is that if I wanted to be rich, I may have been far richer than I am today. But there is a lot of value in integrity. There are certain places that I go that if I had sold my conscience, I wouldn't be able to go. Not every journalist will have the privilege of being invited to speak to you. Hopefully, next week or so, I have 2 engagements outside the country. I've been to certain places I would never have gone, but for the kinds of things I do. So as young people, I just want to end by encouraging you and letting you know that there are a lot of trappings, there are a lot of things we look up to. There are a lot of cars we wish we had. There are a lot of houses we wish we had. There are a lot of vacations we would want to go. But don't circumvent the process. Follow the process. Work hard. It's very difficult. And be content with what you have. The world is in such a way that a time will come, the things you are prepared to kill for to get them today, they become very normal and ordinary things. There are some of you, one day you may be able to buy certain cars of your choice, not through corruption. And it will be like you are buying pure water. So if today you sell yourself cheap to a certain man to get a phone, and then you get to that stage that you can buy Rolls Royce, you begin to look back and say, no, I shouldn't have done that. And there are certain things you can't take back. If you are here, you are going to do betting or some illegal things to get money, to just get some of those small things you need. Hello? Hello? Have I said something? Okay. Basically, I want to encourage you. Sometimes when we talk about these things, we all look at those at the top. But one day, okay, Akufo-Addo is what? 78 years. How many years more does he have to live? Even if he has to leave, how many more years will he be president? Just look at those at the top. John Mahama and others. Okay? Dr. Bamia just turned, is it 59? He'll be 60 soon. So just give them another 40 years. Even if they are still alive, they may not be at the helm of affairs. And look at our age. Give us another 30 years, and we will be running affairs. The question is, are we going to be different? If we will be different, let's start from today. Let us look at the things that matter. Let us respect ethics. Let us be young people of integrity. Sometimes I look at our generation and I'm tempted to believe that if you are not careful, we may be worse than those that came. I just want to pause here briefly, and before we take the questions, we cannot play everything. I made reference to a certain man who was the head of Ghana's procurement authority to prevent fraud. And when we talk about ethics, I want you to know that there are laws, but the laws are not enough to get the best out of leadership or leaders. So this man was there to enforce the law, but he ended up being the one who did the worst. So I just want to get a little bit of where he was busted. It's a 40-something minute documentary. You may watch it later. But I just want to get to a little bit of it that so where is the volume? Can you put the lights off briefly? Supply and installation of air purifiers. The company has also been shortlisted by the Roads and Highways Ministry for 3 road contracts, and the evaluation process is currently ongoing. These are what I've been able to confirm. There could be more. It is said that a bird that dances in the middle of the road must have its drummer or drummers in the nearby bush. And a new company with so many contracts with ministries and government institutions had links, as its general manager said. A search at the Registrar General's Department shows that Talent Discovery Limited
Two shareholders, Ejenim Eje, a majority shareholder of 60% of the shares, and Francis Ahin, who owns the remaining 40% shares. The two are also the directors of the company, which was registered in June 2017. Speaking generally on how to expose people who try to vary their names in order to hide their ownership of companies, the CEO of the PPA, Ejenim Boatin Eje, said a number of ways could be used to reveal the true owners.
Well, some people have a way, and I have dealt with some in the past.
Yeah.
They
Well,
they decide to even use, if they are using their names, they decide to use, pair them in a way. So for instance, if you have 3 names, they can use Ejenim Boatin to register one company, use the Boatin Eje to register another company, and then Ejenim Eje to register another company.
Yeah. Do you know what some, you see, when people are trying to perpetrate any kind of fraud, I would say that at the time that they have the intention to do that, they are not so smart to look at the other implications. They can change and do this in lottery, they call it what? Permutation. They can do all this permutation, but one thing that gives them out is they have the same address, or you can locate one particular telephone number running through, you know, and it becomes so clear that yes, they tried to, you know, as it were, navigate and manipulate the system, but there is something that will always, you know, give them out by that kind of trailing, you know, and we have seen it several times. Wow. Sometimes it's not the name, it's telephone number. Sometimes it's not telephone number, it's address, location.
Of the 2 directors and shareholders of Talent Discovery Limited, one of them pointed to the PPA CEO. The spelling of his Ejenim and Eje are the same as those on the registration documents, even though the registration of the company does not have his middle name or his initial.
Yeah, the right spelling and the right name is Ejenim Boatin Eje, and the Eje name is ADJENIM. Okay. It's not the AGY, because it takes the same source from the surname, which is also ADJEI.
Okay.
Yes. So Ejenim Boatin Eje.
His official name, as found in documents he signs, is not Ejenim Eje. He is Ejenim Boatin Eje, but he signs AB Eje in official documents, including approval letters at the PPA.
Normally, I try to limit the full name as much as possible because of how people call you. When people call the Ejenim Boatin, they leave the Eje. All right, so then I feel that my surname has been shortchanged. So I rather prefer the AB Eje, in which case the Eje becomes prominent.
But there are more clues. 2 of the companies of the TDL group, Frosty Eyes Natural Mineral Water and ABM Logistics Ghana Limited, have shareholders and directors, namely Manasseh Eje and Ejenim Eje. The tax identification number of the Ejenim Eje in the registration of Talent Discovery Limited is the same tax identification number used by the Ejenim Eje in the companies he jointly owns with Manasseh Eje. My investigation also revealed that the wife of the PPA CEO is called Manasseh Eje, so it is highly probable that the Ejenim Eje of the TDL group is the same Ejenim Boatin Eje of the Public Procurement Authority.
Beyond your professional life, you're also a family man, I guess?
Sure. I'm a happily married man with 3 lovely children.
Wow.
Yes.
I was reading somewhere that your wife is called Manasseh Eje.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That is her.
Okay.
Yes, Manasseh Eje is
congratulations for all of this.
The address of Frosty Eyes, a member of the TDL group, is a street in Airport Hills in Accra, and that is where the PPA boss lives. My investigation revealed further clues that suggested that the head of the Public Procurement Authority was the same person who owned the company engaged in selling government contracts. In March 2018, there was a funeral in a brewery in the eastern region, and the 3 shareholders in the TDL group of companies all featured in the funeral invitation. The invitation named ABAJ, CEO of the Public Procurement Authority, as a brother of the deceased. It also named Francis Ahin, CEO of Talent Discovery Limited, and Mrs. Mercy Ejay as in-laws of the deceased. Mercy Ejay is A.B. Ejay's wife, and Francis Ahin is A.B. Ejay's brother-in-law. With these and other dossier of evidence, I confronted Ejenim Boateng Ejay with the inevitable question.
So A.B. Ejay, do you know of a company called Talent Discovery Limited?
I do.
Is it your company?
No.
So how do you know this company?
It's a cousin of mine.
Okay. We have information that this company has been brought here a number of times for approval, restricted tendering.
Yes.
Did it come to your attention?
Yes.
And what did you do about it?
Yes, I did declare at the board meeting.
You have evidence to show?
Yeah.
Today?
No, it's there. It's in our minutes.
Yes, but I'm saying if we want to find out.
Yes, it's in the minutes, so you can always find out.
Okay. And what's the name of this your cousin?
I wouldn't disclose it. You can have it if you want it.
Should we stop? Okay, so the real deal is coming, so don't.
Approval, restricted tendering.
Yes.
Did it come to your attention?
Yes.
And what did you do about it?
Yes, I did declare at the board meeting.
You have evidence to show?
Yeah.
Today?
No, it's there. It's in our minutes.
Yes, but I'm saying if we want to find out.
Yes, it's in the minutes, so you can always find out.
Okay. And what's the name of this your cousin?
I wouldn't disclose it. You can have it if you want it.
We have done our checks and it's not your cousin, but your name is on the registration document.
It's not my cousin. He's my in-law, my brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
Hello. We don't have much time, so let's just hold on. If you laugh too much, you miss the most interesting part.
What's his name?
I will not disclose his name.
Francis Ahin.
Yeah.
And then you are the majority shareholder and also a director.
I'm not the majority shareholder. I'm a director.
A director and then 60% shareholding.
No. It is 50-50.
And who is the second shareholder?
Just two of us.
So it is your company?
I have a shares in it.
They just said.
Okay. We will pause here. We will pause here. You see, leadership, as I mentioned, is not only at the presidential level. There are people all over the country. Even in this university, there's leadership. There are certain people, if you bring them to this university to manage it, when you come here next year, the field, everything will be destroyed. Okay? So this man, as we see, is put there. We've given him a lot of trust. That the procurement system, there's a law, but people are not. So make sure that the law works. Then he sets his companies, gets government contracts, and then sells them. And the contracts, what happens is that the approvals come through him when they have to approve the companies that should be given the contract. So he is sitting there, he will approve his own companies, and he goes and he gets. So I did all the investigation he has no idea about. Then I call him for an interview. And so some of the things is like, you ask him, he doesn't know what you know. I said there are people who decide to take their names in a certain way and then form companies. I said when some people want to do criminal things, they don't. Then I mentioned, but he does this in such a way that he wants to hide. I say, I read somewhere that your wife is Manasseh. Oh yes, that's my wife. Then so he confirms everything. And there was a funeral, and sometimes when you want to know people's who they really are connected with, funeral posters. So he had all the names there, got all of this, confronted him, and the immediate thing to do was to what? Tell a lie. But it's not every journalist you can lie to and get away with it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Manasseh. So we have just 10 minutes. We'll take a maximum of 3 questions so that we can get out of here on time. So I see 2 hands up already. Is there any other hand? So there's a third one here. Okay, so I'll give you dispensation as the last person. Where's Sandro? Take the mic around. The first hand was there. Second hand over there. There was a third hand here. A fourth one and the last one.
Hello. Okay. Hello. My name is Archibald. I have 4 questions, but I'm going to ask 3. Okay, no. I have 5 questions. Let me ask 4. Sorry. So, you're an investigative journalist. Yeah. That means you get daily threats. I think the first question is, what security measures have you put in place in your life for protection? The second question is, how much of an ethical leader can you be, in the sense that for most of your work, do you have to censor like some content based on the sensitivity or your emotional connectivity with it, or are you compassionate enough not to post some content? The third thing is, have you been taken to court, and if you have, how have you gotten through a stage like that, or a stage like that? The fourth question is, what's your most challenging experience as first of a journalist and a second of an investigative journalist? Thank you.
Okay, so since these are 4 questions, you've answered or you've taken a slot of 4 people. So let me just answer and then we go to the next person. Security is a serious challenge. I have had a number of death threats, and some are real. There were times I had to fly out of the country with my family. First to South Africa, there was another occasion we had to go to Germany. There was even a time the state security or the government gave me armed police. So you were driving, and armed police would sit by you. I would say it is not comfortable at all, and the mental torture you go through, knowing that you are not safe. I say that in future, if my children want to do journalism, I won't stop them, but it is not a profession that I would willingly encourage them to do. It is tough. But generally, you don't live like any other person. You don't have the freedom to go with your family to sit out, maybe go to the beach. No. If you are doing this kind of job, sometimes you live like a fugitive who is wanted, and try to be low-key. So that is one thing about security. Self-censorship. Sometimes you look at the bigger or greater impact or influence. There was a time I had information of a very sensitive state institution that had been hacked, okay? And very revealing, and certain exchanges between certain powerful people. Everything was hacked. But myself and my managing news editor at the time, I was at Joy FM, we decided not to do the story because once you do it, you'll be exposing institutions here to greater hackers. If they know that that institution is easy to hack, then the others below them could come under greater threat. So there are times you stop certain things, not because of anything, but in the greater good of the public. Beyond that, I will say that I have never got a story worth publishing, and I didn't. Okay? There are times that certain people would want you to say certain things, as in, give your opinion. If it is about your opinion, you are free to offer, you are free to what? Not offer. But to get a story and not do it. I'm saying this in a sense that, for instance, I have a relationship with Pastor Manasseh. He officiated my wedding. He's like a godfather. And in this work, in some of your most difficult moments, you have people who call you to encourage you and to stand by you. And he's been one of the people who does that behind the scenes. Then in somewhere 2018, about 7 banks collapsed, and he was the board chair of one of the banks that collapsed. So as soon as people heard that Pastor Manasseh's bank was also part of it, they started, the insult started on social media. So they were calling Manasseh to also come and join the attack. And I said, I won't do that. Because people who stand behind you in your most difficult moment, when they are involved in something, their banks, the story was already told. But people just said I should also come out and condemn. And that I didn't do. So that is one thing people use against me, but it is a decision I'll stand by over and over again. And you are a human being before you're a journalist. I have a relationship with Eugene. God forbid. But if something happens and Eugene is being insulted in the media, and you people also hear Manasseh sitting on radio insulting Eugene, you say, but at least he was the one who brought him here. They have a relationship. If anything, why couldn't he even reach out to him? So opinions are free, but when it comes to stories, if it is worth doing, I'll always share it. Taken to court, yes. The investigations I have done, like my personal stories, between 2015 and 2020, I was taken to court 5 times. I was sued 5 different times for defamation. And one of them was demanding $10 million. 10 million cedis. And I don't know whether he wanted me to go and sell my family. Make a fun away. But the good thing is that when something comes and I don't talk about, sometimes I don't have the right evidence. Everybody can talk about certain things, but when some of us talk about certain things, they take it seriously. So before I make certain pronouncements or bring a story out, I know that I have the evidence. Sometimes because of the danger you may pose to others, you leave certain details out of certain stories. But in court, you may be forced to bring them. So on the 6 occasions, including Zoom Lion, RLG, and some of the very top companies, they all sued for defamation. But all of them ran away from their own cases when I filed my defense. So in all the 6 defamation suits against the stories I did, none of them ever went for trial. They ran away. So I wasn't only legal, but I was also ethical in my reporting. Most challenging experience. There are very many, but I will say that the worst of it all is when you have to tell your family impromptu to relocate because there's threats. And you see some of your family members being so paranoid. Maybe they are sleeping, they hear something, and then they are awake just because of the danger you are facing. The most challenging moment is your wife telling you that, I don't want to be a widow at this young age. And you still going out to do the kind of work you do that will bring that danger to her. So they are very challenging, and beyond everything, there's the psychological and the mental injury that you go through. So that is how difficult it can be. It is the reason not many people are into investigative reporting. There are many people who wish they were doing this. They have the resources, they have the talent, but if you are in it for some time, you realize that it is not good for your mental health. And if I went home today and told my family that I've stopped investigative reporting, they'll rejoice. Thank you. So the next.
Yes, good afternoon. I actually have 3 questions. Pardon?
That you should stand up, please.
So I actually have 3 questions. So my first question is, how do you carry out your investigations? And then my second question is, sometimes people show you what they want you to know indirectly to bring other people down by showing you false evidences. So how will you know if the evidence is true or not? And then my third question is that, what are you going to do if such people who are found guilty try to use public opinion against you so that you don't sell them out? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take the next.
I hope you don't have 4 questions. There's only one.
Okay.
Mr. Manasseh, thank you for coming, and thank you for this influencing seminar. So my question to you is, you are a journalist, and I believe that ethics should also be applied to the field of journalism. There should be ethical leadership in journalism. Now, in ethics in journalism, we focus on journalistic integrity, and three of the ethics are truth, accuracy, and objectivity. However, you stated that to stay neutral is, to say you are neutral is to be a hypocrite. So how do you maintain the balance between your personal sentiments about something or a situation and the objective truth? Thank you.
Thank you. How did you decide that you wanted to focus on investigation and crime and everything instead of just doing the normal journalism that goes on in the country?
Okay. The first question was, how do I carry out my investigation? And it is a question that if I attempt to answer tomorrow by this, I will still be here. I am putting together a book. It's actually my 4th book, titled Investigative Journalism in Africa, a Practical Manual. So I'm still writing it. And once I'm done, I'll come and sell a copy to you. It is so much that we can't finish talking about it. How to even get a story, what to do when you get a story, pursuing the story, gathering evidence, going to the field, interviews, putting the story together, pre-publication, after publication. It entails so much. So I will plead with you to pardon me so that when the book is ready, you can get a copy, and then it will give you a fair idea of how to begin and end an investigation. It is true that there are people who will give you information to bring other people down, but I often say that you look at the merit in what they are saying, and if you are investigating or somebody gives you information that I know this minister, this contract was supposed to be 10,000 cedis, but they made it 100,000 cedis. And by the way, if you know Zoom Lion, there was a contract that was supposed to be 900,000 cedis. But Zoom Lion, the government of Ghana gave that Zoom Lion that contract at a cost of 63 million cedis. Yes, it was less than 1 million cedis. It is online, robbing the assemblies per 3. Robbing the assemblies per 3. YouTube. You see a part that deals with being a refuse bin contract. So the entire contract was $74 million. And a component of it was to supply 900,000 bin liners. Those are polythenes that used to cover waste bins. So at the company, I went to the company to get invoice, and they were selling a piece to the general public at 98 pesos, less than 1 cedi. Okay, but they were selling to the government, which was even buying more, at 67 Ghana cedis. That robber. So something that's supposed to cost less than 1 million cedis ended up costing us 63 million Ghana cedis. Yes, and those are some of the fraudulent contracts they give to people like Zoomline. When some of us talk, they think we hate some companies. So if somebody gives me this information, for instance, and I later realize that, well, this person even has a problem with the minister, should I pursue the story or not? Should I pursue the story or not? I'll pursue it because public interest is at stake. But there are others who give personal issues, and I feel that if you are doing this kind of work, it is not your duty to be going about intruding into people's private lives. So if somebody tells me, well, I know this minister who is married, but he has 7 girlfriends, I say, well, that is his case. It is not my duty to come and then say he should have a girlfriend or not have a girlfriend. So they are private things. But if I have information that he uses public funds to fly these girlfriends to conferences abroad, then it ceases to be his private matter, but now what? Public. So sometimes you look at the issues involved. But if somebody has an issue against another person you are investigating, you have to be extremely careful because such a person is bitter. They are motivated by malice. So you are extremely careful. But if you can authenticate the issues, you still go ahead and do a story, whether or not somebody has a problem against another person. There are people who use public opinion against you. It happens, especially the politicians. They have some loyal followers, the foot soldiers. They'll be on social media insulting you. Manasseh, you are the most useless journalist in this country, and all of those things. Sometimes they even use some of your colleague journalists. Some of you may have seen Paul Adomatri doing programs to attack me. Okay, it started when I did a story on the waste bin contract, the one I just spoke about. Even the Ghana Journalists Association was used against me in that contract story. But thankfully, that contract was cancelled. So the nation saved $74 million. That was in 2017 when I did that story. So the public opinion they'll use against you, and sometimes you cannot do anything about it. If you're a journalist, There are times people in your own newsroom can be used against you. Some of your colleagues who work with you in the same newsroom can be used against you. Those are the realities you are likely to confront, and you can do very little about it. Somebody wants to know about ethics in journalism. When you are doing journalism, yours is not to be neutral. Yours is to be fair, objective, and balanced. Okay? There is a man called Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. He once said that anyone who is neutral in the situation of injustice has taken the side of the oppressor. If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, meaning you have taken the side of the oppressor. And he went on to say that if the elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you claim to be neutral, the mouse will never recognize your neutrality. And that is the principle I live by in my journalism. Those sweeping the streets, sometimes you see them when you are going out, you see them early in the morning, you see them sweeping. The government has a contract that says that we should allocate 600 Ghana cedis to them and that they should be managed by Zoom Lion. But at the end of the month, Zoom Lion should take 420 and give them 180 Ghana cedis. Yes. 180 Ghana cedis for a whole month. They come to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They don't have transportation. They don't have health insurance. They don't have any form of insurance. If you come and then you die, it is your own trouble. 180 Ghana cedis now is about less than $18 a month. So if you're a journalist and then you get this information and you are doing a story, can you say you are neutral? You obviously feel for these people, but that is not to say you will not give Zoomline a fair hearing. You write to them and then give them whatever. So this story you just watched, after everything, I wrote a letter again. We did some undercover work where we established that they did all the shady selling of contracts. So we wrote to them that I sent undercover agents to your organization, and we realized you are selling contracts. The evidence we had was so massive. But we said, we want your response. And they said, it's true, your person came, we sold, but we didn't authorize the person to sell and all of that. So you always give them a fair hearing. So when I'm talking about neutrality, it's about something that you don't care, you don't have any form of interest in it. And the only reason I'll keep doing some of these things, or I have been doing them, is because sometimes I feel strongly about it. If I was to be looking for only the salary, I would leave journalism and do better paying jobs. Okay? But sometimes when you feel that somebody is being cheated, I grew up in abject poverty. So if somebody is being paid 180 Ghana cedis a month, I can just imagine what their children are going through. So if I will lie or come and stand here and lie to you that, well, I don't care how much they receive, I'm just doing my job as a journalist, then I could as well be writing about other things. Then the final question is about deceiving on investigative journalism, or who has the final question? Yes, just remind me. I think I can see, I've written it like a medical doctor, and I can't read my own handwriting.
I asked why you chose to do investigative journalism.
Okay. I didn't choose to do investigative journalism. In 2013, somebody gave me information that there is the youth employment program. There was massive corruption there, but a lot of journalists had seen it. They get the information, they take money, and they don't do it. So he trusted that I'll be able to do it. So he gave me the information, and I hadn't really done investigation. My first and second degrees, I didn't study investigative journalism. So I learned on the field or on the job. So when I did that story, I realized there was so much impact. That story resulted in 2 people going to jail. That story resulted in the cancellation of all the contracts except one, and we saved not less than 500 million cedis through that cancellation at the time. That contract resulted in the passage of a law in Parliament. The Youth Employment Law of 2015 was passed because of that story I did. That story resulted in the firing of a lot of people. That story resulted in the collapse of a company called RLG Communications. That company resulted in a lot of cancellation of contracts. So that story is one story. So after this, I realized that no, sometimes when they say one person cannot make an impact, it isn't true. And when you do a successful investigation, you find a lot of people giving you other leads to follow. So that's when I decided to stay on and do investigations. Otherwise, I didn't start with investigations. I didn't really say I was going to do investigative reporting. Before I sat down, I brought I'm also a writer, so I've written 4 books, 3. The 4th one is yet to be published. This is the 4th John, Reign, Rejection, and Rebound. In the Mahama administration, a lot of things happened behind the scenes. How certain appointments were made and all of that. So I interviewed a lot of people, including the former president himself, and then wrote this book. And this is Voice of Conscience, a collection of some of my writings. This is 100 cedis, and this is 50. Voice of Conscience is 50. And then I used to write a relationship column titled Letters to My Future Wife. And the interesting thing about this column is that there was a student at the University of Ghana, a female student, who was reading this book, stories column. Then we became friends on Facebook. So one day I went to the Western region to do investigations, and there's a town called Eziama. Normally when I'm walking, you see people seeing you or watching in a way, oh, is that Manasseh? Is that not Manasseh? So we didn't talk. Then when I got to my destination, I found that she had sent me a message on Facebook Messenger. That, oh, I saw somebody at the Ziama lorry station like you. And I said, yes, I'm the one. And today she's my wife. So that one is also 50 Ghana cedis. If you buy, I'll autograph them for you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful.
Those of you who won't pass this semester, next year I'll bring him again. Those of you who won't pass, next year I'll bring him. So I said at the start of the class that this was going to be our first assignment. So you will have to highlight the things that you heard in this class, especially detailing why the need for ethical leadership in Africa. And you must present your papers to me next week, Friday. It's an individual assignment, every single person, not less than 500 words. Yes, Yasmin. Can I repeat what I said? I'm saying that you have to write on what you heard today, from start to end, highlighting the need for ethical leaders in Africa.
Those
Half of the class. This is the level 200 class. Yes.
Good afternoon to all. On behalf of ACity students and staff, I am glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. A special thanks to our guest speaker, Mr. Manasseh Awuni, for accepting our invitation and being here with us today. Your words have truly inspired us today, and I hope we all go out to become ethical leaders in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before you leave, the media team wants us to